The story begins with a man named Jake Sully, who's been traveling through space for the last 6 years inside a massive ship called the Cryo Transport. The RDA Corporation is taking him to a distant planet called Pandora. Jake used to be a Marine. Back on Earth, he fought in some brutal wars, but during one battle, his legs were badly injured, leaving him paralyzed. He wanted surgery to walk again, but he simply couldn't afford it. Jake's twin brother Tommy was a scientist working on this mission, but just 1 week before leaving for Pandora, Tommy was killed in a robbery. Since Jake shares the exact same DNA as his brother, the RDA decided to bring him instead. After all, they had already spent millions on Tommy's research. Soon, the giant ship finally arrives near Pandora, and everyone is transported down to the planet in smaller space shuttles. Pandora looks beautiful, almost like Earth, far more dangerous. The RDA has already built a huge mining operation there, using gigantic machines to dig valuable minerals out of the ground. Entire facilities and military bases cover parts of the planet. As the shuttle lands, everyone is ordered to wear oxygen masks before stepping outside, because Pandora's atmosphere is toxic to humans. One by one, the new arrivals enter the base. Jake is the last one to move in, rolling forward in his wheelchair. Inside the base, Colonel Miles Quaritch, the head of security, gives the newcomers a brutal welcome speech. He tells them, "You're not on Earth anymore, you're on Pandora, and out there beyond these walls, every living thing wants to kill you." He explains that the native people of Pandora are called the Na'vi. Their arrows are coated with deadly toxins powerful enough to stop a human heart within minutes. Their bones are naturally reinforced with carbon fibers, making them incredibly hard to kill. Quaritch warns everyone that survival on Pandora depends on following the rules, because once they step outside the base, nobody's coming to save them. Later, as everyone heads back to their quarters, a scientist named Norm approaches Jake. He tells Jake that he trained with Tommy in the Avatar program, and says Jake looks exactly like his brother. Norm then takes him into the biolab, where giant blue humanoid bodies float inside massive tanks. These are called avatars, genetically engineered bodies, created by combining human DNA with Na'vi DNA. They look exactly like the Na'vi, and are designed so humans can safely explore Pandora. Only the person whose DNA was used to create an avatar can control it mentally. That's the real reason Jake was brought here. Dr. Max explains that the avatars still need some preparation before they can be used, so Jake will have to wait until the next day. Even so, Jake can't stop staring at his avatar. For the first time in years, he feels about something. Soon after, we're taken to the Link Room, where Dr. Grace Augustin exits her avatar connection pod. Grace is the leader of the Avatar program, and one of the top scientists on Pandora. Dr. Max introduces Jake and Norm to her. Grace is immediately impressed with Norm, because he spent years studying the Na'vi language and culture. But the moment she looks at Jake, her expression changes completely. She tells him straight to his face, "I didn't ask for you. I wanted your brother." Jake explains that Tommy is dead, but Grace still isn't happy. She asks Jake how much scientific training he has. Jake awkwardly replies, "Well, one time in school, I dissected a frog." That answer completely frustrates Grace. She storms off to confront Parker Selfridge, the head of the RDA operation. Furious, she tells him she needed a real scientist for the mission, not some trigger-happy jarhead. But Parker doesn't seem worried at all. He tells Grace that Jake might actually be useful, because unlike scientists, he's a Marine. Grace argues that she doesn't need another gun-loving soldier around the Na'vi. Parker then reminds her why the Avatar program exists in the first place. Their goal is to gain the trust of the Na'vi by speaking like them, living among them, and looking like them. Only then can they avoid a full-scale war. But their relationship with the Na'vi keeps getting worse every day. Grace points out that constantly threatening the natives with guns is exactly why the situation is falling apart. That's when Parker shows her a rare mineral called unobtainium. This valuable gray rock is worth an insane amount of money back on Earth, and it's the entire reason the RDA came to Pandora. The Avatar program itself is being funded by the profits from this mineral. The problem is that the Na'vi are standing directly in the way of the mining operation, and tensions are getting closer to war. So Parker gives Grace one clear mission: find a diplomatic solution somehow, because the company wants the unobtainium without starting a massive battle. Back at the biolab, Jake and Norm's avatar bodies are finally removed from their tanks. The scientists connect both of them to the neural link system, and within seconds, Jake successfully bonds with his avatar. Suddenly, everything changes. For the first time in years, Jake can actually feel his legs again. His avatar body responds perfectly, and he's overwhelmed with excitement. He immediately tries to stand up while the scientists yell at him to slow down, because the testing isn't finished yet, but Jake doesn't care. After being trapped in a wheelchair for so long, this feels unbelievable. He jumps up and takes off running through the facility like a kid experiencing freedom freedom for the first time. Outside, other avatars are training nearby, and Jake starts sprinting around the area in pure excitement. In the real world, he could barely move, but here, he feels completely alive again. Just then, Grace arrives in her own avatar body. Instead of getting angry, she's actually impressed by how naturally Jake is controlling his avatar. Later, all the avatar drivers go to sleep inside their link pods, disconnecting from their avatar bodies and returning to reality. Afterward, Jake meets Trudy, the pilot of one of the military gunships. She takes him to see Colonel Quaritch, who specifically asked for him. The colonel tells Jake that he reviewed his military record and knows he fought in some of the deadliest battles on Earth. But according to Quaritch, Pandora is a completely different kind of war. He explains that back when he worked as a military operative, he survived countless missions without a scratch. But the moment he first arrived on Pandora, the planet nearly killed him. Quaritch then admits something surprising. He thinks the entire Avatar program is pointless. Still, he believes Jake can be useful. He wants Jake to live among the Na'vi, earn their trust, and learn everything about them from the inside. Quaritch says he wants to understand one thing: how to make the Na'vi cooperate, and if they refuse, how to force them to cooperate. Jake asks if he's still officially working with Grace. The colonel smirks and says, "Yeah, you'll keep being her science experiment. Just bring me the information I need." Then he offers Jake something life-changing. If Jake helps him, Quaritch promises the company will pay for the surgery to restore his real legs when he returns to Earth. After hearing that, Jake agrees. The next day, Jake and Norm reconnect to their avatars and head deep into Pandora's jungle with Grace. They travel in Trudy's helicopter, flying over endless forests filled with glowing plants and massive alien trees. The jungle looks breathtaking, but also incredibly dangerous. Eventually, they land in a remote area and begin exploring. Grace and Norm start collecting plant samples for research, while Jake wanders farther into the jungle on his own. Suddenly, a strange alien creature charges straight at him. Jake instantly prepares to fight back, but right before the animal attacks, it suddenly stops. At first, Jake thinks the creature is scared of him, but when he turns around, he realizes the animal wasn't afraid of him at all. Behind Jake stands an enormous predator. The beast immediately lunges at him. Jake fires his gun, but the creature easily knocks the weapon out of his hands and sends it flying into the jungle. Terrified, Jake runs for his life. The predator chases him through the forest until Jake finally jumps off a cliff into a river below, barely escaping. But now he's completely lost and separated from Grace's team. Knowing he won't survive unarmed, Jake uses his knife to craft a spear so he can defend himself from the creatures hiding in the jungle. At that moment, a young Na'vi woman secretly watches him from the trees. Her name is Neytiri. She quietly aims her bow at Jake, ready to kill him. But before she can shoot, several glowing seeds from the sacred Tree of Souls float around Jake and land on him. Neytiri is shocked because the Na'vi consider these seeds sacred signs from their goddess. Because of that, she decides not to kill him. Meanwhile, Grace and the others search for Jake using the helicopter, but hours pass and night begins to fall. Eventually, they're forced to return to base, and Grace sadly assumes Jake is probably dead. Out in the jungle, Jake suddenly finds himself surrounded by a pack of vicious wolf-like predators. To scare them off, he lights a fire and fights back with his spear, killing several creatures. But there are too many of them, and they slowly overpower him. Just when the pack is about to kill Jake, Neytiri suddenly appears out of nowhere. With incredible speed and skill, she takes down the predators one by one and saves his life. But instead of thanking him, she becomes furious. She tells Jake that everything happened because of his stupidity and says the animals never should have been killed. Jake argues that it wasn't his fault because the creatures attacked him first. Neytiri snaps back, saying the real problem is that Jake crashes through the jungle making noise like a clueless child who understands nothing about Pandora. Jake then asks her, "If you care so much about your forest creatures, then why did you save me?" Neytiri looks at him for a moment and says, "I saw strength in your heart, no fear, but you are like a baby, completely ignorant." And with that, she turns and starts walking away. But Jake follows Neytiri and asks her, "If I'm really just a child, then why don't you teach me?" Neytiri tells him that people from the sky can never truly learn because humans don't see nature the way the Na'vi do. Jake then asks where she learned to speak English, but she ignores the question and tells him to leave. Right then, the glowing sacred seeds begin floating toward Jake again, gently landing on him. Neytiri is stunned. To the Na'vi, this is a powerful spiritual sign from Eywa, their goddess. bliss. Seeing this, Neytiri's entire attitude changes, and she decides to take Jake with her. As they travel through the forest, several Na'vi warriors suddenly ambush Jake. They throw ropes around him, drag him to the ground, and prepare to kill him. But before they can, Neytiri rushes in and stops them. Soon, they bring Jake to the Omaticaya clan, a massive Na'vi village built inside an enormous sacred tree. Jake is taken before Itukun, the chief of the clan and Neytiri's father. The entire tribe watches him carefully, trying to decide what should be done with this strange sky person. A warrior named Tsute immediately says Jake should be killed. Tsute is one of the clan's strongest fighters and the future leader of the tribe. He's also supposed to marry Neytiri someday. Since Jake doesn't understand the Na'vi language yet, he has no idea what they're saying. Neytiri quietly explains that her father is deciding whether Jake lives or dies. Then Neytiri's mother, Moat, finally arrives. She is the spiritual leader of the clan and deeply connected to Eywa, the goddess the Na'vi believe exists within all living things on Pandora. Moat studies Jake carefully and realizes that Eywa has somehow chosen him. She asks Jake why he came there. Jake answers honestly, saying he came to learn. Moat explains that humans have come before, pretending they wanted to learn too, but they always believed they already understood everything about the Na'vi. Jake admits that he knows almost nothing. He tells her he isn't a scientist. He used to be a soldier. After hearing this, Moat makes her decision. She tells Neytiri that she will personally teach Jake the ways of the Na'vi. That night, Jake falls asleep in the Na'vi village, and as soon as his eyes close, he disconnects from his avatar and wakes up back in the human world. The scientists immediately ask if his avatar is safe. Jake excitedly tells them they won't believe what happened. He's actually been accepted into the Na'vi clan, and Neytiri herself is going to train him. Everyone is shocked, especially Grace. For the first time, she starts seeing Jake differently and becomes genuinely impressed. Later, Jake secretly reports everything to Colonel Quaritch. He tells the colonel that he's successfully becoming part of the Na'vi community. Quaritch is pleased with the progress. Then Parker shows Jake a massive holographic scan of the Omatica village. Underneath the giant tree where the Na'vi live lies an enormous deposit of unobtainium stretching for hundreds of kilometers. That means the entire tribe is standing directly on top of the most valuable mining site on Pandora. Parker tells Jake he doesn't want a war if it can be avoided. Jake's mission is to find a way to convince the Na'vi to leave peacefully. Otherwise, the military will eventually force them out. He gives Jake 3 months to make it happen. Jake promises he'll try. The next day, Jake reconnects with his avatar again, and Neytiri officially begins training him to become Na'vi. She places him on a strange horse-like creature and teaches him how to connect to it, using the neural braid attached to his hair. Neytiri explains that this connection creates a bond between rider and animal, allowing Jake to control the creature with his thoughts and emotions. Jake tries to ride it, but completely loses control and crashes to the ground. Later that night, Jake secretly records another report for Quaritch. He explains that destroying the massive home tree won't be easy because the structure is unbelievably strong inside. Even advanced scanners can't fully map its internal design. Unnoticed by Jake, Dr. Max overhears the conversation and realizes Jake has been feeding information to the colonel the entire time. When Jake returns to the lab, Grace warns him that she refuses to let Quaritch and Parker interfere with her mission anymore. Because of that, the team decides to relocate to the floating Hallelujah Mountains, where they have a remote mobile link station far away from the RDA base. As they travel there, Jake sees giant mountains floating freely in the sky. The view is so surreal and beautiful that everyone is left speechless. Eventually, they land high in the mountains, near the mobile link site. Grace then connects Jake to Link Unit 1, a special system that almost never fails. Later, Neytiri takes Jake high into the mountains, where huge flying creatures called Ikran are resting on the cliffs. These powerful creatures are known to humans as banshees. Neytiri calls her own Ikran, Sizi, and the massive creature immediately flies down to her. She explains to Jake that an Ikran bonds with only one hunter for life, which means Jake must now choose one of his own. From that moment on, Neytiri continues training him every day. She teaches him the Na'vi language, their customs, and how to survive in Pandora's wilderness. Every night, Jake records everything in his video logs. Over time, Norm becomes one of Jake's closest friends and helps him improve his Na'vi speaking skills too. Thanks to Neytiri's training, Jake keeps getting stronger, faster, and more confident in his avatar body. Eventually, Jake even convinces Moat to allow Grace into the village, and slowly Grace also starts building trust with the clan. At the same time, Jake and Neytiri begin growing closer to each other. But there's still one thing Jake doesn't fully understand: the deep spiritual connection the Na'vi have with the forest itself. Neytiri often talks about an energy network that flows through every living thing on Pandora. She explains that all energy is only borrowed for a short time, and one day it must be returned. By now, Jake has learned the Na'vi language and mastered nearly everything Neytiri has taught him. One day, she finally tells him, "You are ready." The next morning, Jake and the other young hunters are taken high into the mountains for a dangerous rite of passage. Today, they must choose and bond with their own Ikran. The climb itself is terrifying because the creatures nest on deadly cliffs far above the ground. Neytiri arrives there too, while Tsutey purposely sends Jake first, hoping he'll fail because he still dislikes him. Neytiri tells Jake he must choose an Ikran carefully and feel the connection from within. Jake asks, "How do I know if one chooses me?" Neytiri smiles and replies, "It will try to kill you." Jake slowly approaches several Ikran, but none of them accept him. Then suddenly, one aggressive creature attacks him violently. Jake struggles to hold onto it as the beast thrashes around trying to throw him off the cliff. After a brutal fight, Jake finally connects his neural braid to the creature, creating the sacred bond between them. Now the two are linked as one. Jake releases the restraints and takes his Ikran into the sky for the very first time. At first, he can barely control it, but little by little, he learns how to fly. Soon, he's soaring freely through Pandora's skies. Neytiri watches proudly as Jake masters the flight. Afterward, the two of them fly together across Pandora, exploring its breathtaking world side by side. Later, Neytiri takes Jake to the clan's sacred Tree of Souls, a spiritual place where the Na'vi connect directly with Eywa. The next day, while Jake and Neytiri are flying together again, a Gigantic airborne predator suddenly attacks them from above. The creature is massive and terrifying. The Na'vi call it Toruk, the legendary last shadow. Jake and Neytiri barely survive the encounter. When they return, Neytiri explains that long ago, her ancestors once rode this mighty beast. In all of Na'vi history, only 5 hunters have ever bonded with Toruk. The following day, the clan holds a huge celebration, and Jake fully participates as one of them. He has truly become Na'vi. That night, Neytiri takes Jake to the Tree of Voices, a sacred place where the Na'vi believe their prayers are heard. There, she tells him that he is now fully part of the people. That means he can carve his own bow from the sacred wood and choose a mate. Jake softly says that he has already chosen one, but she must choose me too. Neytiri smiles at him and says, "I have chosen you." Then the two finally kiss. But the next morning, everything changes. Horrified, she tries waking Jake, but his human body hasn't connected to the avatar link yet. As soon as Jake finishes eating and reconnects to his avatar, he rushes out and tries to stop the machines. The operators ignore him completely. Desperate, Jake jumps onto one of the bulldozers and smashes its camera system. But even then, the destruction continues, and countless trees are torn down. When Colonel Quaritch watches the live footage, he immediately realizes Jake has betrayed them and fully sided with the Na'vi. Without wasting time, the Colonel heads straight for the mobile link station to stop him. Back in the village, Tsutey blames Jake for everything that's happening and angrily attacks him, but Jake refuses to fight back. Instead, he tells Tsutey that he isn't the real enemy. The real enemy is Quaritch, and the human military is far too powerful for the Na'vi to defeat alone. Meanwhile, Quaritch and his soldiers arrive at the mobile link station. They forcibly disconnect Jake and Grace from their avatar links, causing both avatar bodies to collapse lifelessly in the middle of the forest. Meanwhile, Quaritch captures Jake, Grace, and the others. By now, he fully understands that the Na'vi will never agree to leave peacefully, so he begins preparing for war. Jake and Grace are brought before Parker one last time. They beg him to stop the attack, warning him that innocent people will die if the military moves forward. Jake tells him, "Just give us one more chance. Let us talk to them. We can get them out peacefully." After thinking for a moment, Parker finally gives them 30 minutes. Then he reconnects them to their avatar bodies. Back in his avatar form, Jake rushes to the Omotakia and warns everyone that Quaritch is coming with a massive military force, powerful enough to wipe out the entire clan. He begs them to leave before it's too late, but nobody believes him. So Jake finally tells them the truth. The humans originally sent him there to learn the Na'vi way of life, so he could gain their trust and eventually convince them to move. Neytiri is devastated. Furious and heartbroken, she asks how he he could betray them after everything they shared together. Jake admits that at first he really was following human orders, but now everything has changed. He tells Neytiri that he fell in love with Pandora, and he fell in love with her too. Still, Neytiri refuses to forgive him. She says she trusted him, and he used that trust against her. To us, you will never truly be one of the people. The clan chains Jake up as a traitor. Soon after, Quaritch arrives with the full military assault force. Jake desperately warns the Na'vi to run because they cannot survive this attack. But many warriors refuse to abandon their home. The humans begin firing massive gas bombs into the area to force the Na'vi out of Home Tree. Then Tsutey and the Na'vi warriors launch a counterattack with arrows from the trees. That only enrages Quaritch further. He orders a full bombardment. Explosions rip through the forest as gunships attack from the sky. Panic spreads everywhere, while the Na'vi flee deeper into the jungle. In the middle of the chaos, Moat walks up to Jake. She tells him that if he truly is one of the people, then now is the time to prove it. Then she cuts his restraints and frees him. Meanwhile, Quaritch launches the final bombing strike directly at Home Tree itself. After repeated attacks, the giant tree finally begins collapsing. Trudy is flying nearby during the assault, but she refuses to fire on the Na'vi because she knows what the military is doing is wrong. Instead, she leaves the battlefield. The massive Home Tree crashes to the ground. Screams echo through the burning forest as complete chaos takes over. The surviving Na'vi cry in grief while Quaritch watches the destruction with satisfaction. Before finally pulling his forces back, Neytiri rushes to her father, Itikan, but he has been mortally wounded. Before dying, he hands his bow to her, passing on his strength and leadership. Jake later finds Neytiri and tries to comfort her, but she angrily tells him to leave and never come back. Back at the human base, Parker orders the scientists to unplug Jake and Grace permanently. Norm tries to stop them, but security forces restrain him. Jake and Grace are disconnected from their avatars and locked up. Meanwhile, the surviving Na'vi sadly abandon the ruins of their home and disappear into the forest. Later that night, Trudy secretly brings food to Jake and the others. She knocks out the guard watching them, and with Dr. Max's help, they free everyone. The group quickly runs toward a helicopter so they can escape the base. Jake tells Max to stay behind and secretly gather information from inside the RDA operation. As the helicopter lifts off, Quaritch discovers the escape and immediately opens fire on them. Trudy barely manages to fly away under heavy gunfire, but during the attack, Grace is shot. Jake desperately tells her to stay awake and keep fighting. The group reaches the remote mobile link station, hidden near the mountains. There, Jake tries to treat Grace's wound, while Trudy relocates the mobile unit closer to the Tree of Souls, so the military won't find them easily. Jake reconnects to his avatar once again, but when he wakes up in his avatar body, he finds himself completely alone. The Na'vi abandoned him because they still see him as a traitor. Jake realizes there's only one way left to earn their trust back. He flies into the mountains on his Ikran to find the legendary Toruk, the giant predator feared across Pandora. Jake attacks the massive creature from above and somehow manages to bond with it, bringing the legendary beast under his control. Now riding the mighty Toruk, Jake flies toward the Tree of Souls, where all the remaining Na'vi clans have gathered. When the Na'vi see Jake arriving on the legendary Toruk, they're terrified at first, but the moment they realize he's actually riding the mighty creature, everyone is left completely shocked. Because in Na'vi history, only the greatest warrior leaders, the Toruk Makto, were ever able to bond with that beast. And just like that, the people begin trusting Jake again. Jake then walks up to Tsutey and tells him that he's a great warrior and the people still need him. He says there's no way they can stop the humans without fighting together. After hearing this, Tsutey finally agrees to stand beside him. Jake then tells the clan that his friend Grace is dying, and he asks for Aiwa's help. The Na'vi bring Grace and her avatar body to the Tree of Souls so they can try to transfer her consciousness permanently into her avatar. The entire clan joins together in a spiritual ritual, connecting to the sacred tree while chanting around Grace. For a moment, it almost seems like it's working, but Grace is too weak because of the gunshot wound. Her human body can't survive long enough for the transfer to complete. In the end, Grace dies, and her spirit becomes one with Aiwa. Jake is devastated. Afterward, he gives a speech to all the clans gathered there. He says the Sky People believe they can take whatever they want, and nobody can stop them. But now, the Na'vi will send a message back. A message that says they are not afraid. Jake tells the humans to leave Pandora while they still can. Then he calls on every clan to unite and show the invaders that this land does not belong to them. "This is our home," he declares. His words ignite a fire inside everyone. Soon, Soon, warriors from different clans begin arriving one after another, riding their Ikran and preparing for battle. Their numbers grow larger and larger until a massive Na'vi army is finally assembled. Meanwhile, Quaritch learns that the Na'vi are preparing for war, so he decides to launch the attack immediately the next morning. He prepares every available gunship, bomber, and fighter aircraft for a full assault. At the same time, Max secretly warns Jake that Quaritch plans to attack at dawn. Trudy points out something terrifying. The humans are going straight for the Tree of Souls. If that sacred tree is destroyed, the Na'vi could lose their direct connection to Aiwa forever. Jake realizes they have no choice now. They must stop the humans at any cost. That night, Jake goes alone to the Tree of Souls and prays to Aiwa for help. He says that if Grace truly became one with Aiwa, then Aiwa has seen the memories of Earth, a world where humans destroyed nature completely. Jake explains that Earth is dying because humanity killed its own planet, and now they're here to do the exact same thing to Pandora, and it won't stop unless someone stands against them. He tells Aiwa that the Sky People will keep coming again and again until every resource on Pandora is gone. Then Jake says he finally understands why Aiwa chose him. He promises he'll fight for Pandora, but he needs her help. Neytiri quietly walks up beside him and says that Aiwa does not take sides. She only protects the balance of life. Jake nods and says, "Yeah, but I had to try." The next morning, Quaritch launches the full attack with an enormous fleet of heavily armed aircraft heading straight for the Tree of Souls. As the military approaches, Jake and the Na'vi warriors suddenly attack from the skies, riding their Akran. The battle instantly explodes into chaos. Na'vi warriors dive through the air, destroying human aircraft one after another, but the military ships are heavily armored and packed with deadly weapons. Huge numbers of Na'vi begin dying during the fight. Quaritch spots Jake in the middle of the battle and immediately targets him personally. Just then, Trudy arrives in her aircraft and attacks Quaritch to protect Jake. But Quaritch's gunship is far more powerful. After a brutal fight, Trudy's aircraft is destroyed, and she dies fighting for Pandora. At the same time, Sute manages to board one of the enemy ships and attacks the soldiers inside, but during the assault, he's shot and fatally wounded as well. Jake tries contacting the other warriors during the battle, but nobody responds anymore. Most of them are already dead. Only Neytiri is still fighting. As soldiers begin surrounding her, Jake warns her not to attack recklessly. But before the humans can finish the battle, something incredible happens. Suddenly, all across Pandora, the wild animals begin charging toward the battlefield. Massive beasts attack the human soldiers from every direction. Neytiri realizes what's happening and smiles. She tells Jake, "Aiwa heard you." At the same time, giant flocks of Ikran fill the skies and swarm the human aircraft, tearing them apart one by one. Seeing the battle slipping out of control, Quaritch orders his pilots to drop the bombs directly on the Tree of Souls and destroy it once and for all. But before they can fire, Jake suddenly lands on the main bomber riding Torek. He attacks the aircraft and blows it apart before the bombs can be released. Right after that, Jake goes straight after Quaritch's gunship and starts tearing into it as well. Quaritch spots him immediately and violently turns the aircraft, causing Jake to hang dangerously off the side of the ship. The colonel climbs outside and starts shooting at him point blank. But at the last second, Jake throws a missile into the aircraft's engine wing, and the entire gunship begins exploding mid-air. Realizing the ship is doomed, Quaritch jumps out wearing a massive AMP combat suit before the aircraft crashes. Jake barely survives too. After landing, Quaritch notices the remote link station nearby, the place where Jake's real human body is connected to his avatar. Without hesitation, he marches toward it and starts destroying the station. Just then, Neytiri arrives and attacks him fiercely, but Quaritch kills her mount with his knife, trapping Neytiri underneath the massive creature as it collapses. The colonel then turns his weapon toward her, ready to finish her off. Before he can, Jake arrives and tells Quaritch to surrender, but the colonel refuses. "As long as I'm breathing, I'm not giving up." A brutal final fight breaks out between Jake and Quaritch's giant combat suit. The two battle each other for a long time, while the damaged station around them begins falling apart. Jake eventually smashes the glass cockpit of the AMP suit, exposing Quaritch to Pandora's toxic atmosphere. But even then, Quaritch refuses to stop. Wearing an oxygen mask, he forces his way into the link room and destroys what he thinks is Jake's connection unit. Luckily, it turns out to be the wrong one. Still, the station has already been heavily damaged. Air begins leaking out rapidly, and the entire room starts losing pressure. Jake struggles to fight back, but because his human body can't breathe properly, he slowly begins losing consciousness. Quaritch grabs him and prepares to kill him once and for all. But at the final moment, Neytiri frees herself from the dead creature pinning her down. She grabs her bow and fires multiple arrows straight into Quaritch, finally killing him. At the same time, Jake disconnects from his avatar because his real body is suffocating inside the link pod. He desperately reaches for an oxygen mask, but collapses before he can put it on. Seeing this, Neytiri rushes inside the ruined station and places the mask over Jake's face, just in time, saving his life. Later, we see the surviving humans being sent back to Earth. Only the few people who truly respected Pandora and its people are allowed to stay behind. Finally, Jake is taken to the Tree of Souls, where the Na'vi perform one last spiritual ceremony. This time, the transfer succeeds. Jake's human consciousness permanently moves into his avatar body, allowing him to become fully Na'vi forever. And with Jake opening his new eyes for the very first time, the story comes to an end.